Good evening, everybody. This is Dana B with Scotty S and Charlie M. We are the 3% from Mountain Patriots Educational Ministries. You guys know us all around here in the Shenandoah Valley right about now. And we decided with everything that was going on that we might as well put together what we would call a pretty emergency type of meeting on what redistricting is, what's kind of going on, and what it means. And we got the opportunity earlier on this afternoon to meet with the conservatives at Lake Frederick and their group and listen to our 6th district chair, John Massoud, and the delegates representative and ward Representative Emily Wendell out there today at the Bowman Library. And we wanted to bring on our 6th district guru when it comes to of election integrity and voting and what this is all about, so we can get people up to speed on what's really going on in Virginia and what this could mean to us if we actually redistrict. So I want to introduce everybody tonight to our friend Rodney Vine. I'll turn it over to Charlie, and he kind of facilitates for us. And I want to thank Scott and Rodney for, of course, us, the three of us, always being able to get together on short notice. So, Charlie, I'll
Thank,
turn it over to you, brother.
thanks, Dana. Um, just a context. We are terribly concerned about April 21st. Now, whether that happens or is delayed, we don't know, but we have to assume it's going to. And all of that is part of this redistricting debacle that's going on right now. And we're really pleased that Rodney, that you're here to tell us a little bit about setting the stage, what the history is, and bring us up to date on it, and then perhaps we can talk a little bit about what we should do. We'd like to be able to make a difference in this upcoming election. We got several elections
Yes,
this
we do.
year.
253 days.
Yeah, we have. Well, I just saw the primary is moved from June 21st, I
August,
think, to August 4th or August something.
August 6th,
August 6th.
August 6th, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
6th.
Yeah, so Rodney, if we'd like to turn it over to you and educate us, if you would.
Sure. Let me start off by saying vote no on April 21st.
Yes,
Can't
vote no
reiterate
on
that
April
enough.
21st.
Amen.
Vote no on April 21st. So prior to 2020, U.S. congressional districts in Virginia were drawn up every 10 years post census by the party in charge. Of course, that led to a lot of gerrymandering in which the state's conservatives versus liberals or Republicans versus Democrats didn't reflect the true makeup of Virginia's political ideology.
Right.
And for those of you who don't know, gerrymandering is a process of drawing distorted voting districts to get a political advantage to one party or the other. And then with the parties winning elections, losing elections, the pendulum swings back and forth, and people get kind of irritated with that. Virginia became fed up with the process, and November 3rd, 2020, an election by which the numbers show Biden to have won Virginia by 10%, voted to do away with gerrymandering. Dana, if you can show that the maps that I sent you,
Yep,
the
I'm about to
historical
pull it up
maps,
for you, Rodney.
and just scroll through there so people can see how the
Give me a
maps
second. Let
change.
me let me get to that spot. It's funny because I just got my computer worked on, and of course, where is it? Give me a second, Ronnie. Let me pull this. I've
Okay,
gotta.
so the map that Dana is looking for will show the swings and the electoral districts, congressional districts in Virginia from year to year. Well, people got fed up with it. And the referendum question was concerning the formation of a bipartisan redistricting commission to draw U.S. congressional districts in Virginia. That was to have started in 2021 if it passed, which it did, and to be done every 10 years. So 2021 to 2031, 2031 should be the next time that U.S. congressional districts in Virginia can be drawn up. So the question was in 2020, should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to establish a redistricting commission consisting of 8 members of the General Assembly and 8 citizens of the Commonwealth that is responsible for drawing the congressional and state legislative districts that will be subsequently voted on but not changed by the General Assembly and enacted without the governor's involvement, and to give the responsibility of drawing districts to the Supreme Court of Virginia if the Redistricting Commission fails to draw districts or the General Assembly fails to enact districts by certain deadlines. That was the question. And 65.9% of the voters said, yes, that's what we want. We want a bipartisan redistricting commission to give us fair reflections of Virginia and the ideology of Virginia. So the 8 members of the General Assembly were to be 2 members from each party from the House of Delegates, 2 members from each party from the Virginia Senate, and then 5 retired judges from the Virginia Supreme Court were to be on the redistricting commission and to pick 8 citizens for that commission. And those people, those 8 citizens, were picked from lists given to the judges from both parties.
Right.
Of course, the Republicans were in charge. They were in support of this. And even, believe it or not, the ACLU was in favor of that referendum. And the referendum had the majority of support in every municipality in Virginia, with the exception of Arlington County. The Dems obviously opposed the referendum because they didn't like that the judges would appoint 8 citizens to the commission. The retired judges at that time were mostly Republicans. So the Dems challenged the wording of the referendum, took it to the Virginia Supreme Court. Virginia Supreme Court said that the Department of Elections had to present the referendum question exactly as Virginia legislature had written it. And again, of course, the Republicans had control of the legislature at that time. So all of that, with the passing of that, led to the amendment of Article 2, Section 6 of the Virginia Constitution, apportionment, and the addition of Section 6A, which is the Virginia Redistricting Commission, and that will tell you exactly how the Redistricting Commission works and the ins and outs of the people getting elected or appointed to that. If the Redistricting Commission cannot agree on the redistricting map, the Virginia Supreme Court will draw the map.
Okay.
One part of the Article 2, Section 6 reapportionment of the Virginia Constitution requires, quote, every electoral district shall be composed of contiguous, that means connecting parts side by side, and compact territory, and shall be constituted as to give as nearly as practicable representation in proportion to the population of the district. Notice that it doesn't say stretched out, meandering, twisting, which is the gerrymandering part of it. Right. But one of the Dems' proposed maps published February 6th did that, their first one. They had another one that they put out around the 20th, and I think they did another one on Friday, this past Friday.
Now, Rodney, which one of these maps on here do you want me to go to? I'm at 98.
No, I'm just look at those to show how the
so you can see
the districts changed.
Okay, so we see what happened in 98, and then we go to 2000. Now, is this all done during census years, Rodney?
No,
I didn't think so.
It's almost every other year.
Almost every other year.
Yeah,
okay,
and that's what people got sick of. So let's jump to now. The Dems currently have control of the House and Senate in Virginia, as well as the AG, lieutenant governors, and the governor's office. And what do they want to do? They want to redistrict Virginia from a current 6-5 Democrat-Republican map to a 10-1 Democrat-Republican map. The 6-5 is a pretty good reflection of the state, while the 11-1 does not reflect the ideology of the state whatsoever.
No,
go ahead.
Rodney, what I heard was listening to John Massoud today. This made sense. He goes, if they redistrict this, you've got UVA and Virginia Tech both in the same district.
Well, well, that's true. And John likes to, and a lot of people like to play that UVA and Virginia Tech are
Right.
ideologically opposed, but they're not, unfortunately. Lots of liberals at Virginia Tech. When you think of farmers and
Yeah.
agricultural people out there and the
Mhm.
tech people, you would think common sense and you know, conservative values, and unfortunately, they're slipping away from that.
Mm, makes sense to me.
So while 20 years ago or 30 years ago, or when I was in high school, a little further back than that, you go down to tech and you mention a liberal, and people at tech would give you all kinds of hell. Of course, if you went to UVA and mentioned something liberal, they would want to just hug you, right? And
Right.
come sing kumbaya with us.
Right.
But
That's what kind of what Johnny M was saying.
yeah, but
So where do
the
we go from
Dems.
here, Rodney? What do we need to do?
Okay, well, let me go on. There's some people. There are different groups that are trying to appear to be Republicans or conservatives and telling people to vote yes. Again, I want to reiterate: vote no on the 21st. But one of those groups is Virginians for Fair Elections, which is a liberal group trying to trick people into thinking they're the conservative Virginia for Fair Elections, which I'm a part of. So do your homework, check out what I'm saying, and then vote common sense. And there's many who argue that the Dems are here doing this because President Trump encouraged other states to redistrict. I partly agree with that,
Right.
but the Democrats, had they come up with this idea on their own, they would have done it anyway. Um, there's a lawyer on our side, which I like, out of Lynchburg, or is leading the fight for Lynchburg, just put out that Trump started this and Trump was wrong. Well, I disagree with that. The Dems will do whatever they can to stick it to the Republicans whenever they can. And what they're doing in Virginia with the current redistricting efforts is illegal under the Virginia Constitution. They passed a map. They brought the amendment to the House and Senate in Virginia, which was passed the first time. They argued that the election this past fall was an intervening election, which is not correct because it's supposed to be an intervening general election. However, they didn't publish their amendments in time. They didn't. They started their um, process after the early voting started, so they're not
Uh-huh.
actually. They don't have the intervening general election that they're like to say they have. And that's exactly what the judge, Jack Hurley out of Tazewell County said. You didn't go by the laws in order to
Constitution.
come up with these. Well, and it's Virginia statutes and Virginia Constitution both.
Right.
And so he said, no, you can't do this. And of course, they appealed it to the Virginia Supreme Court. And then last week, Jack Hurley, the judge from Tazewell County, bless him, ruled again, and then he enjoined the Virginia Department of Elections. I've got to read the actual text of his ruling, but he enjoined the Virginia Department of Elections and said, you cannot go forward with any part of the election. Well, yesterday morning, Department of Elections put out a thing that says, oh, that doesn't really mean us, but that just means a few people here at the Department of Elections and the Tazewell County.
Okay.
So I would imagine that Judge Hurley's going to do some clarification in the next day or two. I hope he rips them a new one. And I'd like to see him have a couple of them in contempt of court, actually. So that's where we are. And as I understand, on Friday, there are quite a few more people, Republicans, who have filed suit against them, and that'll have to work its way up to the court. I do not see this standing. It may hold up to appeals under the Virginia Supreme Court. It will not hold up under the U.S. Supreme Court, which is where it'll go to.
You said it will not hold up under this Virginia Supreme Court.
It may hold up under Virginia Supreme Court. So
But you're saying the
Hurley's,
Supreme Court.
hang on,
Okay.
hang on. Judge Hurley, in his second thing, where he enjoined Virginia, that made it where the Virginia Supreme Court has to rule. So in the first time when the Dems appealed, the Virginia Supreme Court said, "Yeah, we'll talk about it on April 23rd, 2 days after the election. We'll hear all your arguments." Well, kind of irrelevant then, right? Then it's just a drawn out legal battle trying to undo something that was quote unquote legally done, but illegally done under the Constitution and a bunch of the statutes in the Virginia Constitution. With that enjoyment, it should have stopped. So if the Virginia Supreme Court either has to say, no, Judge Hurley, you're wrong, and the special election can go forward, or if they pass it again, he will clarify his ruling, and that will stand until it's appealed and back to them. If the Virginia Supreme Court says, no, Judge Hurley, you are incorrect, and it goes forth, then all of our appeals go to the U.S. Supreme Court. And there I do not see it being upheld.
So we have a pretty good idea of why this is happening. And I'm just going to ask you, you're the expert at this. Now, looking at our congressional map right now, Rodney, is it pretty fairly divided the way it is right now as far as districts are concerned for representation in our Congress?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I wanted people to understand that, because if they don't understand that, we could be undoing something that can not only harm people now, but when the bell swings the other way, it'll harm other people later on a revenge tactic.
Right. Right now it's 6-5, and Biden won 54% of the vote according to the numbers that were put out.
Right.
So it's a pretty good reflection of the ideology in Virginia. 11-1 sure as hell is not, or 10-1 rather.
Mm-hmm. No, 10-1. I mean, that's like a baseball bat. I mean, that's not any fair representation, because you've got two different classes of people on both ends of that spectrum, especially where we are in what would our 6th district would become the 10th district. Am I correct?
Yeah, and you can see how the all these new districts are twisted around, so you get a majority liberal vote and cover as much of the conservative vote, but while they still retain a majority. So if you look at 10, which will be going horizontally across the top of Virginia, it will be Frederick County will be encompassed down with Fairfax.
Years ago, we were 10, but they changed it.
Yeah, we were in the 10th. Yeah, that wasn't that long ago either.
Yeah.
The / redistricting. But there's also a thing about the amendment. If you look, the amendment, the current amendment was passed by referendum vote in 2020, became effective in 2021. And that amendment also says that it's done every 10 years. Well, this is not 2031.
Let me see if I can.
They know what they're doing, and they know that we may have a midterm census. I think we probably won't, because we don't have time. But in 2031, they're going to lose a lot, especially if the SAVE Act goes forward. They're going to lose a lot of voters here in Virginia, because once the voting rolls are started to be audited for registered voters who are not U.S. citizens, well, then they get cleaned off.
Let me ask you this question. I mean, I'm not an expert on this by any stretch of the imagination. They keep saying this is a temporary measure, which I don't believe one bit.
Never will be.
But even, and I may be wrong on this, so if I am, please correct me. But even if we were to win it in the court, it would be overturned. Can't they turn around and do this again in a couple more years?
Well, they could try. I mean, of course, they'd lose again. I think once it goes to the Supreme Court, as long as even though we have some liberal conservatives on there,
Right.
it would not stand. Under the Virginia Supreme Court, they might allow it, but then it's going to get appealed right away. So
I've got
yeah,
a
they're going to
couple.
try to do. Look, if they the one thing Democrats do, if they can't get by with BS in one year, they'll try it every year until they get by with it.
Right.
And there is no such thing. I've never heard of a temporary amendment to a constitution. That's absolute bullshit.
That's what they're writing on the ballot.
Oh,
And
of
it's
course.
also fair.
Of course, that word fair, yeah. Does that fair should be a fair and proper reflection of the ideology of Virginia versus, liberals versus conservatives or vice versa, which is 6-5. 54% voted for Biden. 6-5 is a good reflection. 10-1
Now,
is a lie.
Rodney, now a few years back, when they originally did this vote a few years ago, what were the percentages of the people that really were not in favor of redistricting? It was like 66 or 65, 66%. Am I correct? And now we're trying
66
it again.
66% voted
Right.
in the referendum to change the Virginia Constitution in 2020
Right.
that gave us this redistricting commission, which is a bipartisan commission.
Okay.
So
So what's the status of that today?
I saw a couple newspaper articles today that were saying the majority of Virginians are not in favor of this. Of course, you can't believe half of what you read, but I mean, I would like to think that people are smarter than
the
what
headline.
well,
yeah.
I think conservatives never really have the backing of libtard media.
Yeah.
You may have
Well,
heard the
if it's
term
coming from
fake
libtard
news,
media,
right? You may have heard
Rodney,
fake news.
if it's coming from the left and they're saying that 60s, that the majority, and we're hearing that already. Okay, I'm hearing that from some Democrat friends. I mean, this isn't a red or blue or liberal or conservative independent situation right now. This is a statewide, all of us in the same boat can literally, one way or another, literally be screwed by this eventually.
Oh, absolutely.
So if we vote no, we're actually more fair now than we would if we started tampering with something.
So now we're fair. A 6-5
Now
is
we're
a
fair.
good reflection of the Virginia voters. 10-1 is not. If you vote no, you're voting to continue what it is right now of having a bipartisan redistricting commission do the redistricting, not a liberal or a conservative legislature coming up with their own maps. If
As
you
a
look
conservative, I would want somebody liberal to talk with because I mean, conservatives don't have all the answers and neither do the liberals. You have to have a balance,
that's correct.
a yin and a yang to something.
Yeah, and we're not always, well, I mean, most of the time we're not going to agree, but at least we can try and understand their viewpoint, their perspective. I can't
But
say.
let me ask you this question. Let's say it's a done deal. They get what they want, and we're screwed in the end. What happens to people like Ben Klein? I mean, he's
gone.
He's just completely out of it.
Sure.
Period. Okay.
He'll never get elected, and the only place that.
Well, I mean, is he? Because his district would be wiped out, correct?
Correct.
So
district
and the way it's twisted would then be enveloping majority liberal voters who would not vote for Ben Klein.
Yeah.
So yeah, we would lose 4 U.S. congressmen from Virginia to the U.S. Congress, and that gives what they're doing really is trying to get control of the House and Senate, the U.S. House and Senate, so they can pass this BS and battle against Trump's common sense stuff.
They want to impeach him. That's all they want to do.
Well, yeah, and short of impeachment, they want to block everything that he tries to do for America because they're not pro-America. You look at the State of the Union last night.
Yeah, it was on display.
If you believe that your number one job is to, keep American citizens safe, stand up. Who didn't stand up? The
The
Democrats.
whole left side of the
Yeah. Well, I think there was one. I think there was one lady.
yeah.
But,
There was a couple times there was one or two people that stood up.
Yeah.
I did
so-
watch Mark Warner walk out in the middle of it.
I wish he'd keep walking too.
Yeah.
Well, it's a shame because I mean, whether I'm a constituent, whether he's a Republican or a Democrat makes no difference. He's my constituent. We're his constituents,
Right.
and we pay for them through our tax money and so forth to sit there and be present for, especially when you're talking about whether you like him or not, the commander in chief. I've never seen Republicans walk out of a State of the Union address before, but I have watched Nancy Pelosi tear up a speech.
Well, this is how much Mark Warner likes his constituents. Back when the Obamacare vote was getting ready to happen, I called and finally got through. I called Mark Webb's office, and then I called Warner's office, and it took me a while, but I got through to Warner's office. And the young lady picked up the phone and said, "Can you hold on for just 1 minute?" I said, "Sure, not a problem." And a couple minutes later, she gets back on the phone. "How can I help you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm calling about the Affordable Care Act. I want him to vote against it." And she goes, "Oh my God, you people!" And click. And I emailed him. I said, "This is the response I got from you. You work for me." Never heard back from him.
And that's the thing. While we see ourselves as their constituents because we are their constituents, I don't think they see us as their constituents.
No. So
Kane, have you ever tried to get through Tim Kaine's office?
Absolutely. I spent almost 45 minutes the other day, talked to everybody but.
Yeah. So
I make phone calls, which is where I was heading next, Rodney. From what I understand, I do want to put a plug out there tonight for Amanda Chase, who is doing a phenomenal job with what she has called the Honey Badger Report. I think everybody should be reading that. And whether you're conservative in the middle or to the left, that doesn't make a difference. It lets you know all the bills that are going down. But in her Honey Badger Report, it gives you all of the congressmen and senators that are in your district or whatever district anywhere in Virginia. What was brought up earlier in today's meeting is the fact that we should be on the phones talking to our congressmen and our senators going, "Hey, look, this is not, we don't want this." And I don't care whether you're on the left side of the aisle or the right side of the aisle. We've got to make sure that we got to play. We all live in America and we have to play fair in the sandbox. Because, if you beat somebody down, somebody else is going to come back later and kick your butt. And I think here's the opportunity for us to try to find some middle ground for a change.
Yeah, I agree. And certainly, everything I put out, I want people to check it, double check what I'm saying, make sure what I'm saying is correct, and then do the same thing for anybody else. And that includes the liberal Democrats. Double check what they're saying. And if it doesn't hold up to truth, then, it's not true.
One of the things that we as conservatives are concerned about is the one-party system. And I do believe the progressives, the Democrats, want a one-party system. They want to put us in the corner and make us impotent. Right. And I don't want to see 9 or 10 red and 1 blue.
Or vice versa.
Right.
Or vice versa.
We need to have that tug and pull to keep each other, maybe not so much in check, but aware that we need to behave ourselves and we need to look out for the best interest of the state and the best interest of the country. And we absolutely need the two-party system. So whether it's a Democrat or the Republican going for a 10-1, that's wrong.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the term "in check" is the absolute correct term. Okay. I mean, the entire U.S. system was set up as a checks and balances.
Absolutely. Supposed to be.
And right. And when you have a one party, you have a democracy. Well, which is mob
Or
rule.
tyranny.
We don't have a mob. We don't have a democracy in the United States. We never have. We have a federal republic,
right,
and we always have. So when you go to a one-party rule, that's a mob rule, and we don't have it, and we don't want it.
But we have a federal republic, but we don't have a state republic, right?
Sure, we do. You vote for somebody to represent you. That's a republic.
Oh, I get you. I get you. Right.
I'm going to ask one more thing, Rodney, while we got you tonight, because I strongly encourage, talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, let them know what's going on, have a meaningful conversation, because this is going to affect all of us, all of our kids, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. Drive somebody to the polls. Anybody that's going to vote no, take them with you. But talk to people. Make phone calls. Help us out. Get the word out there. Talk to folks. While we've got you, Rodney, you want to take a couple minutes and cover the SAVE Act, because that's kind of on the burner at the same time, and one may affect all of this is going to affect everything coming up in the next 200. We have 253 days before the November election, and we've already seen changes. So you want to take a few minutes for the folks that are going to be listening to this to cover the SAVE Act for them?
Absolutely. SAVE Act.
Thank you.
The SAVE Act is safeguarding American eligibility for voters.
Correct.
And what that requires is a proof of citizenship to register to vote, which we don't have now. Motor voter law set up by Clinton way back kind of started the screws to us. And the lack of voter ID, photo ID, when people go to vote. So if you were to get on a Frederick County website or Department of Elections website for Virginia, it would tell you a list of acceptable IDs to vote, all of which is an absolute lie, because you do not have to have an ID to vote in Virginia of any sort. I can go in to any of your all's voting places. If the people didn't know you, I could tell them that your name, I could tell them your address. I should probably, if I'm going to pull a con, probably have your date of birth if they ask that. However, you don't have an ID, which can be BS, like a water bill or
electric bill.
Oh, what a bunch of crap. But you can swear, hey, I swear I'm Dana. I swear I'm Charlie or Scott, and they can vote in your place. So when people went in a couple years ago and they were voting, and they said, no, you've already voted. No, I haven't. Yes, you have. Well, and some of them said, well, we received your ballot back in the mail. Never been on a ballot, mailed-in ballot before. Heather Lockridge was one of her supervisors at the time. That's what happened to her. Well, that's what happens. You know, you don't have to have an ID. You have this mail-in balloting stuff, and it just sets us up. So the safeguard eliminates that.
Yeah, I didn't realize that I voted absentee about 3 or 4 elections ago. And I walked in there and they said, you already voted absentee. I'm like, oh, no, I didn't.
Yeah. Well, that happened.
You were an officer of elections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Scott, you were an officer of election.
Absolutely.
I've been a chief officer of election for years. You know, you got to know the laws, but the law is simply in Virginia, you don't have to have an ID. You can lie and say you are somebody else.
If I remember correctly, all you had to do was fill out a piece of paper saying you are who you are, and that was it.
Affirmation of eligibility
That's
and statement of identification. Yes.
Yep. That's all it took.
And one of the new laws that the Dems are trying to pass in the House, and it's going to cross over, is if you, Scott, as an officer of election, see a guy that comes in and says, I'm Charlie Markert, however, you know that's not Charlie, you as an officer of election can challenge him.
Yeah.
But if Charlie's wife was there, she could not challenge them. That's a new law that they're pushing.
Yeah,
Only officers of elections can challenge voters now, which is absolutely right up their alley for scamming votes.
Now, I've also heard, Rodney, from what I'm understanding also, there is no counting of the ballots afterwards. There's no hand count. And I think is it $1,000 fine or something like that for challenging that? What's the $1,000 fine for?
$1,000 fine would be for an electoral board member to refuse to certify an election because
Right.
they see anomalies in that election.
Right. That's it. That's what I was looking at this morning. There's just so much coming at us at one time. That Charlie and Scott and I have had to change gears on our regular ministry stuff on trying to help people out into holy cow, we've got to understand all this election system and redistricting that none of us has ever learned before. Like John Massoud said today, we don't know. We don't know 100% because they don't know.
They're going to pass more and more laws to stop us from having transparency in the elections, like refusing to allow us to challenge a voter we know is not a voter or who they're purporting themselves to be. They're going to, no IDs. You don't have to have that. It's just ridiculous.
Even the officers of elections, though, that some of them are completely ignorant. When I ran for office, I was at one of the polling places, and the guy didn't have an ID. He walked in and he said he was going to vote for me and came back. I said, I couldn't vote. I didn't have an ID. I said, you turn around and go right back in there and tell them you don't need an ID. You need to fill out that statement of affability or whatever it was called. And he turned around and walked back in there. And after he told them what to do, they let him vote.
Yeah, and that's pathetic. I'd put that right on the registrar in bad training. But officers of elections can get those books, can read those manuals and stuff, and know what they're doing prior to
They keep the books
working.
cellophaned, and they tell you not to open them.
Yeah. Well.
All right, I've got one last point, Rodney, before we let you go.
Sure.
The explanation of the ballot, and I don't have it here with me tonight. I should have been able to pull it up, but a lot of this was new. There's a yellow pamphlet that's going around that explains the fair elections. And which the wording in this, it was originally written for an 8th grader. And from what I understand, they went back and asked them to write it so that a 5th grader could understand this. All right. So they could understand what this yes and no redistricting vote is. So if we end up at the polls on the 21st, are you going to be doing any poll watcher training? And will people all over Winchester be needed at the precincts? And how do they get involved in this?
People all over Winchester, all over Frederick County, all over Virginia need to get out. And this is one of the few things where I would say that greeters outside are more important than having poll watchers inside.
Absolutely.
So in Frederick County, we've done a pretty good job of training poll watchers, many of which have gone on to be officers of elections.
Got a lot of Mountain Patriots there, Rodney.
We do. And, the Torres Ronda's group.
Those guys are great.
Yeah, conservatives of Lake Frederick. They're great. But in general, we have a lot of poll watchers who've gone to be officers of elections. So we have good officers of elections in almost every precinct. It's if they're observant, we need the more the officers of elections are trained and more observant they are, the less we need poll watchers inside. Mm-hmm. Now, in a big election where you've got a lot going on, it's really busy, we need the poll watchers. This is going to be a very boring and unfortunately, I think, low turnout election, as most special elections are.
I don't know.
However, we need to get the word out. Vote no on the 21st. We need to do it as people go in, because I'll tell you, most people who show up won't even know
what they're there
the
for.
Wording of what they're going to vote on.
That's
That's pathetic.
Well, it's pathetic and but unsurprising anymore to me. At first, I was surprised people would go in to vote and they'd say, "Who's the Republican?" I'm like, "Well, here, But you should know this, Of course, they give me a dirty look. They take it and go vote for Republicans anyway. But the Democrats do the same thing.
It always amazed me when I was doing that. The one that blew my mind the worst, though, and these were people that voted every time there was an election, and they came into the 2020 presidential, the Democratic primary, and they got their ballot, and the guy came up to me and says, "Trump's not on here." I said, "Yeah." I said, "It's the Democratic primary." "Well, I don't want to vote for these people. I want to vote for Trump." I said, "Then come back in November. This is a Democratic primary. He's not a Democrat." And it couldn't get it through his head.
But it would have been nice if we could have got him on the Democrat primary ballot.
I told him, I said, "You've got the ballot. You don't have to fill it out, but you can turn it in blank. But I can't take it back from you. Once you got it, you got to cast it."
Well, unfortunately, there's an old saying, people don't really get involved until
it hurts
the fan and the hard times are there. Well, why should you wait? You should get educated. You should get activated and get out and vote and do what you need to do to keep garbage at bay. I mean, good Lord, you look at this trash that's coming out of the Virginia Assembly.
Oh my gosh,
it's ridiculous.
So we don't really need to necessarily change anybody's mind about the issue so much as we need to find people that agree with us and get them to the polls. We need to
everybody
educate
should.
people.
I mean, I don't mean to sound blunt, but I think with just in the essence of somewhat fairness it's a no vote. But I'm going to ask Rodney a favor. And this is so everybody that's watching this has an idea of what they can say, because a lot of people don't understand this. So if you were going to walk up to somebody, Rodney, and say, there's an election, there's a referendum on April 21st about redistricting, okay, what would your elevator speech be in 15 or 20 seconds that you would say to somebody before they go into the polls? So you're the greeter. What would you, because I'm trying to get a little bit of training in here for people that are like, I don't know what to say. I wouldn't know. I just know to say no. And somebody's going to say, well, why do I want to vote no? So what would your elevator speech be to talk to somebody about why they should vote no?
So first of all, anybody who wants to get involved, we will have the talking points handed to them. They can double check those and then talk to the voters as they come up. But my 15-second spiel is we currently have a 6-5 Democrat to Republican electoral districts. That is a reflection based on the 2020 presidential election numbers of 54% Democrat, 44% Republican. It's a mirror of what we have as voters. If you go to 10-1, it's no longer a reflection. We don't have representation of conservatives.
Done. So for people that didn't catch that, why would you vote no? Well, right now we have a 6-5 majority Democrat or Republican in place right now here. Okay. As a reflection of our 2020, when Biden was running, it was 54% Biden, 46% Republican. If we switch that, then it becomes 10-1, and that doesn't give a fair voice to anybody. That's why we're asking you to vote no.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to try to make it easy for people. So, folks, take that little piece. Okay, it's 6-5 then. It's a reflection of 2020. The Democrats beat the Republicans 54-46 in 2020. And if we change the redistrict, if we redistrict it and change it, it then becomes a 10-1. And no matter what side you would be on, you wouldn't want it 10-1.
Right.
So that's why we're voting no.
Right. And go back and look at those maps. The pendulum always swings. So while it's Democrats in power now, eventually it will be Republicans again. And you know what? Then it gets redistricted the other way. So besides the fact that this redistricting, as they're doing it, is unconstitutional under the Virginia Constitution, in addition to being illegal under Virginia statutes, it's just not the common sense way to go.
I'm glad you brought all that up. Well, Rodney, I can't thank you enough for taking the time. And I know I speak for Scott and Charlie when I say, folks, we're all in this. This is all hands on deck between now and the end of the year. Our freedoms are at stake. And I heard somebody say it this way: if you vote for socialism, you'll get socialism, and then you have to shoot your way out of it. Okay.
But
So,
they're giving their guns up, so they won't be able to shoot their way out of it.
Well,
you
that's
know,
why
I mean,
why you get guns and mags and ammo right now.
so I mean, we want
Right.
people to you won't appreciate your freedom and until you lose it. And we're not doing this. Mountain Patriots is not out here doing this because we're going to last the next 50 years. We're doing this because you have kids and you have grandkids and they're going to have kids and they're going to have grandkids, and we want to leave this country better for them than it was when we got here, because what it is right now, what we've been left, is pretty much a mess.
Yep.
So, Charlie, any last words? Scott, any last words?
I'm good.
I think we
Thanks.
covered it.
Thank
Rodney?
you, Rodney.
Gentlemen, good as always to see you. Take care.
Fantastic.
Hi,
I'm going to
brother.
ask Scott real quick if he'll take us out with one of his infamous D.L. Moody type prayers, because the man is fantastic. Scott?
Go get him, Scott.
Lord, thank you again for just your love, your mercy. Thank you for your hand that's on this country, Lord. Even though a lot of us reject you, dear Lord, we just know that you have your hand on this country, and it's been your guiding light that's directed us. We just ask that you put a hedge of protection around us, Lord, and just send that Holy Spirit to come and to minister to each and every heart and life, and help us to win souls to Christ. In the blessed name of Christ, amen.
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 Folks, everybody, thank you for all of us for just taking the time tonight. And as Rick would always say at the end of every meeting, this one
Is
in the
In
book.
the book.
Have a great night, everybody.